So I decided to stop on the side of the road in the backwoods of South Carolina and let my nephew pee. While peeing, a deer ran out from the pitch black woods, scared my nephew so badly that he turned around, ran in fear, but face planted with the extended mirror from our bus. He not only soiled himself, but knocked himself out cold in front of every one of our students. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Youth Group Chronicles. Joining me here again, I have Mindy Spencer and Pastor Aaron Stearns. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks for having us.
We're here.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing episode 1 with you guys a few weeks ago. What was a story that stuck out to you, if any of them?
It was
A couple of them.
the girl eating the goldfish and then running and vomiting through the field. Like, I have mental images of that still.
Yeah, I think definitely that one. Just the chomping of like... Why
See,
would you continue?
if this is your first episode you're listening to, this just means you need to go back.
You need to go back and
check
listen,
out.
guys, because
it's
some
worth
of them,
it.
you know, these are funny, but some of them are just crazy. Like the other one that stuck out was the Holocaust one. So
Oh my God.
if you don't know what that means, go listen.
Go listen to it.
Yes, that was the first story we read,
Yes.
so
First
it's right
no-no.
there for you.
Yeah.
You'll probably be hooked. But
You may have
yeah,
seen
that was
that
something else. We'll start this off by saying if you have stories of your own. I always mention this, but somehow people still don't know how. Email us at ygchronicles@gmail.com. We would love to feature your story on this show. You don't have to be a youth pastor. You can be someone that experienced something funny in youth group, maybe something crazy. You could be a chaperone, or you can be a youth pastor, whatever it is. If you are somehow involved in youth ministry or attended it, we would love to hear your stories and feature them on the show, because many people are saying, you know, it's funny, we listen to this and it's like, I thought our youth group was doing bad. And it's like, no. Listen to a couple of these
It
stories.
makes you feel really good about
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Great company.
Great company. We're all here. We're all humans.
And every time you think that one story can't get worse, there's always another one.
It's
So just keep
that's
listening.
true.
Yes,
That's
that's what I
really
found
true.
out. So let's kick this off. This was from Matt. He wrote this in on Facebook. We were doing a youth group game where you see how many times you can jump rope in X amount of time. Now, there was this one kid who kept hollering out for us to let him do this game. He said he could outdo everyone. So I finally gave in, let him come on the stage in front of the entire youth group. The music and timer countdown starts. So he proceeds with the jump rope. But after a few jumps, his pants fall completely to his ankles in front of the entire youth group.
No.
And he's standing there butt naked in front of the entire youth group because he wasn't wearing any underwear.
Oh, commando for the win or the loss. Man.
What do?
You move again. You go to a different youth group.
Yes.
I've decided to change churches.
Man.
Why were you so excited about that? You knew you weren't wearing a belt or underwear, yet
And
you wanted to go up there.
You felt them suckers slipping down. What are you doing?
Right, like, hike him up.
Oh my goodness.
That's terrible.
Justin said,
girls.
my biggest youth ministry fail came when I was a youth pastor in seminary. One evening for youth group, I was reading on the passage that had sexual immorality in it. However, instead of saying sexual immorality, I continually said, this is a mouthful, sexual immortality.
Yes. Yes.
What?
Finally, a student raised his hand during the middle of the sermon, to which I told him, hey, sorry, no questions right now. And he said, I know, but do you mean immorality? Immediately, I realized what I had been saying, which was sexual immortality, the entire sermon. And the worst part is I was even working on my master's degree and still made this mistake. You know who this sounds like? Is something like Dwight Schrute would say,
Yes.
like, I am sexually immortal.
Yes.
Those who are sexually immortal. Like, what does it even mean?
I don't know. This guy apparently knows.
Yeah.
Superhuman sexuality?
I guess so.
Terrifying.
The funny part is the kid is the one that realized what was going on.
Yeah. He had to be corrected by his youth kid. Oh,
Now,
man.
this was sent in by someone that we know. I'm not going to say the name, but I'm going to see if you guys can guess. I feel like you guys are going to know immediately. This person said, one time without me knowing, I had a 15-year-old with no driver's license back up my car 10 feet into another parking spot, but he hit 3 cars while doing so. Any guesses?
Honestly, I don't know.
Is this my husband?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your husband.
Yeah.
Oh
I was
my
gonna say.
gosh.
I don't know when that was, but he told me that.
The very early years.
Very early years?
Yeah.
That's funny.
He was still like 19 or 20 years old.
He's taught many people how to drive cars. I've witnessed it.
But this wasn't teaching.
No, this was literally
some kid jumped in the car.
Just go,
Back
I know. He had the thought process that this is super easy. But
it's not.
It's not.
How do you hit 3 cars? That's impressive
15.
in itself.
Yeah.
I question
Absolutely.
nothing.
Oh my gosh.
This was from Jay Veal. This was an email submission. My worst youth ministry fail includes injury and embarrassment to my 6th grade nephew.
Yes.
We were headed to camp and running late for check-in. While driving, my nephew asked for a bathroom break, and I asked him if he could hold it a little longer so we could make good distance before we actually stopped. Unfortunately, I missed the only exit, and there were no stops for another 60 miles or so. So I decided to stop on the side of the road in the backwoods of South Carolina and let my nephew pee. While peeing, a deer ran out from the pitch black woods, scared my nephew so badly that he turned around, ran in fear, but face planted with the extended mirror from our bus. He not only soiled himself, but knocked himself out cold in front of every one of our students.
Oh my gosh. Seriously? You pooped yourself and you just...
So the kid was peeing, and in no part of this story does he say he quickly zipped up his pants. So this kid was running around.
Literally.
Yep.
Pants around the ankles. Just
Smack
out cold. And you could see all the kids looking out the bus, the kid like
Oh
unconscious
my
on the ground,
gosh.
just twitching.
Can you imagine that phone call home? I mean, I know
It was to his sister.
It's his. Oh yeah,
Because that's his sister's kid.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, hey.
So this happened.
I don't know where to start.
We have you.
A
just made
deer
it to
jumped
camp.
out. It's like, it is one of those stories is like, see what had happened was.
I know
And
we've
you
only
know
been
it's
gone
all just
3
bullcrap,
hours.
but it actually is
Yes.
real. Dang.
Yeah, it's like never let them know your next move. That was that story.
Oh my goodness.
Connor emailed in and said, our youth group was on its way to its annual winter camp, and I was a volunteer at my church while going to Bible college. The middle school pastor put me in charge of a bus of 40 students. I was sitting on the front seat behind the bus driver, and a student from my small group was across the aisle and 1 seat back from me. We were about 45 minutes from camp, about to go through the last town on our way there, when the student asked me to stop so he can go to the bathroom. I ask him if he can wait 45 minutes, to which he responds, yeah, I can hold it. Thinking he just had to go pee, we kept going. About 10 minutes later, he asked to stop again, and I told him we were about half an hour away. And again, I asked him if he can hold it. He said yes. About 5 minutes later, I start to smell something, and I look back at him, and I find this student staring at his poop-covered hand in just awe. He looks at me and said, I just needed to check.
Check what? Like,
I'm in complete shock as poop the smell of it overtakes the entire bus.
Disgusting.
Luckily, we were passing a gas station, and I had the driver pull over. The boy runs inside while I dig for his bag, only to find he has 1 pair of pants.
No.
He said, and they were currently filled with poop. Thankfully, we found a loaner pair of sweatpants to get him to camp. But, oh my.
No.
I'm just confused at what were we checking? Like, did you not feel it?
I feel like you would know.
Like I can tell when something comes out.
Or maybe he was just trying to deny the inevitable.
That
and
I
he's-
just pooped myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
that couldn't have happened. No.
There's no way that I actually just pooped myself.
Nope, there's
Let me
And then
check.
it ruins it for everyone else because you know that had to be a horrible.
Reach your hand out. Oh my gosh. Like, could you imagine just seeing someone's hand just like
Hey.
That actually,
no.
that happened on a cross country bus one time. This girl was like, she's just sitting there. She's like,
No.
and you just see it
No.
like running down. Like,
Oh my gosh, that's horrible. I thought you were gonna say my toddler did something like this, and that would
Oh
make
yeah,
sense.
I mean that makes sense.
that's
like, hey,
happens,
look
yeah.
what I have.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Toddlers
Yeah.
are different than youths.
Yes.
Youths.
I say youth pastors just don't get paid enough for this.
No, they don't. They really don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mathin wrote in and said, here's a crazy story from my mom's youth group in the 80s.
Oh.
Their youth group went on a week-long retreat to an old military fort that you could now bring groups to stay at. And when they had arrived, the youth pastor informed the students that some convicts had escaped to a nearby prison. Now, there were actually no escaped convicts, so you might be asking, why in the world did he tell them this? Fast forward to the end of their week, where everyone has been on edge the entire time, and they were having their last worship session. All of a sudden, some guys with masks and what looked like guns burst into the room. They are telling everyone not to move, as the kids are obviously freaking out and hiding under things. One of the, quote, convicts goes up to the youth pastor and puts a gun to his head. Again, not sure if it was a real gun or like an airsoft gun. The youth pastor actually starts fake crying, and the students panic even more. It was then and only then that he realized how big his mistake was and called off the entire prank.
What? You couldn't get away with that now.
No, you couldn't.
You could not do that now.
It's like, hey, I got a prank. Here's the prank.
Here's a prank. I'm gonna fake cry and everything. Oh my god.
A lot of thought went into that.
No,
yeah.
like seriously. Oh my god.
Those kids are still in therapy today. Legend has it.
No, honestly.
Those could be our parents.
So what, 80s?
Yeah.
40 years ago?
I mean, yeah.
Did you say 40 years ago?
That was 40 years ago.
What part of the 80s?
Early 80s.
Okay. You're treading.
You're a little dangerous there.
Some of us in this room are a little more mature.
So it could have been you.
Yeah.
Could have been you in the room.
It could be. It's not me though.
It's me. It's me.
Dylan wrote in and said, we were at a youth group lock-in hosted by
Lock-ins.
a different church about an hour and a half away with another youth group. One of the main events was a Nerf fight between two of the youth groups. We were running through the entire church up and down the stairs, but one of our youth leaders decided to jump down half a flight of stairs, but he didn't realize how low the ceiling was when he jumped. And he ended up knocking his head into a corner of the ceiling and getting a huge gash on his head. He was super dizzy, and we couldn't tell if it was from the lack of sleep or too many monsters or if he had a concussion, but he ended up with some stitches and being all right, but certainly learned not to jump downstairs at an unfamiliar church.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man,
See, like,
I bet it was dark. It had to have been dark, right, in the church?
lock-ins in general, just like
There's always bound
something
to be something.
I say
that-
no more lock-ins.
Yeah.
After hearing all these stories, I've never heard of a good
Don't do
lock-in.
lock-ins.
Don't do goldfish.
Or
and
lock-ins.
don't do
and
lock-ins.
definitely
Exactly.
don't do goldfish at a lock-in because I feel like that
Yeah,
would just be
I
There
feel
you
like
go.
that one goes hand
Or
in
would
hand.
they offset each other and make the night good?
Not if you're chomping down on...
not if you're a goldfish chomper.
Yes, go back and listen to that episode, the first one I did with Mindy and Pastor Aaron. You'll know what we're talking about. Corey wrote in and said, I was the youth pastor of a very conservative youth group.
Praise God.
Most of the kids were homeschooled, and when I say homeschooled, I mean very, very homeschooled, like sheltered.
Like the crunchy homeschooling.
Yes.
Yes.
This is hitting a little close to home for me.
Seems like I relate.
Sam was a crunchy homeschooler.
We went to a youth conference in Oklahoma, and it just so happened to be that there was another large youth conference in the area, and the hotel we were staying at was full of those other teenagers. Before we were about to leave the hotel for dinner, a few of the teen guys asked me if they could go downstairs and wait in the lobby while I rounded up the rest of the group. These guys thought it would be a good idea to check out the indoor pool, and while they were in the pool area, a few of the girls from the other conference were outside the windows, knocked on them while the boys were in the pool area, and then flashed the boys.
Oh, no.
Again, these boys are so sheltered, they weren't even allowed to watch PG-13
Oh, my
movies.
gosh.
No.
They ran out and found me, and the youngest boy was almost in tears, thinking he was in so much trouble. The oldest boy, who was 17, ran up to me and said, some of the girls over there showed us their mamaries.
Their mamaries.
After figuring out exactly what he meant
Mammaries?
and having to kind of decode that one, mammaries, mom, whatever, I don't know what to call it. I was just,
Their memories. Oh,
I
my
laughed
gosh.
and without thinking said, well, usually the show comes after dinner, and I ended up having to call these boys' parents and tell them what happened, and the mothers were appalled.
Those darn youth group
How
girls.
would Mama Moss have reacted?
She probably would have laughed if that had happened to me.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
my
just-
gosh. Yeah.
I'm just actually more impressed that you read it mammaries instead of mammaries.
See, yeah.
Yeah. Memories.
You know, here's the funny thing. This is a little bit of behind the scenes. I have in my notes like MA-MUH-REEZ to help me remember. And I even looked up how to pronounce that because I didn't know. And I still butchered it.
It's fine. It makes for a funnier story.
Memories? Is that how you say that?
Memories.
That's why you get a.
I had never heard that
you know?
until I heard this story. Never heard that before.
That's so funny.
I guess I'm not as sheltered as y'all were saying.
Wow, look at you.
Wow, proud of you.
That's funny.
Lindsay said, when I was in youth group, all the older kids, myself included, convinced our youth leader to take us to a restaurant called Dick's Last Resort.
Oh my gosh.
While we were on a weekend retreat to the beach. Now, if you're not familiar, it's a very interesting restaurant where the staff is extremely rude to everyone.
Amen.
Yes.
And depending on the group, extremely vulgar.
Yes.
Now, our youth leader had no clue what this restaurant was about and agreed to take all the kids. We get there, and it was after we were seated with giant paper condoms put on our head that our youth leader had to pull the wait staff to the side and ask them to tone it down because we were a church youth group, ages 12 and up, and that he had been tricked by the older youth in his church.
I've been tricked.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's funny.
I would have been that youth pastor. I had no idea until Randy was like, come on, guys, let's go. Yeah, that sounds good.
I've been.
You know,
when I was
is
a
it
teenager.
as bad as they say?
Yes, it's.
I mean, we went knowing what it was.
Right. You go expecting to get rude service and to be insulted,
and you laugh.
Like,
but
I would cry now.
Yeah.
With what they wrote on my paper condom that I got when I was down there.
No, it's so bad.
Is it still a restaurant? Like, it's still a thing?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
thing.
funny.
It was actually my goal to work there when I moved down south, but then the Lord had me go to Bible school instead of
Took you in
with
did a
my
little
normal
180
Yeah,
there,
I'm
didn't
just
he?
thinking like if we took the kids from our youth ministry there,
They would just start a fight.
No,
I feel
it would be an all-out brawl. It would turn into a massive roast session.
This is a joke, everyone. Remember
Yeah, but
this.
to see people's faces like that don't know what it is priceless.
Uh-huh.
Just an utter shock. Just like,
Well, imagine his face not even knowing what the restaurant
the
was.
older kids who trusted the older
Never
kids.
trust
like,
the seniors.
Let this be
Oh
a
my
lesson
gosh.
to you all.
Never trust the older kids.
Can't do that.
Emmy wrote in and said, my youth group is from a small town in Louisiana. One of the biggest trips we went on was to Philadelphia. The youth pastor's wife was researching extra things we could do while we were there, and she found this art gallery for local artists that had really good reviews. So after a 15-hour drive and hardly any sleep, we get to the city and we tried to find this gallery. Now keep in mind, we are a group of people ranging from 6th grade to 12th grade and adults from the very deep South. So we already stand out, not to mention we all had tie-dye
Sure do.
t-shirts on. We finally got inside of the art gallery and we're knee deep into this gallery. And we notice that all the art was made up of male genitals. Every single piece of art was made up these tiny male genitals. The youth pastor, 55, and his wife, 50, were absolutely horrified.
Oh my gosh. No.
Can you imagine going in there and you're just like, oh, that's very pretty, and then you just
Look at it.
You like
Your eyes
have to, like,
you
focusing on it.
squint
lean
and you're like,
in.
oh my gosh,
God.
Oh no.
Is that?
we need to go now.
How many did they pass by though before they realized that that's what
They said they were knee deep into the gallery,
So that means
so
that
they were there for a little while.
They were
Yeah. Were they?
Can you imagine seeing one and be like, oh, that's an inappropriate, and then looking back and going, oh gosh,
All of them are inappropriate.
Right. All of everything is just.
that's a very interesting art gallery. That's all I have to say.
Honestly, when you said Philadelphia and art, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Really?
I was like,
you had an idea?
With
Not
deep,
well, not that, but I just knew it's like the art scene in big cities is usually naked. Just like, come
They
look at my art
certainly
show. And
got
like,
that.
you go and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
naked people, which like
Yeah.
if you're into art and you know what you're expecting, you know, you do you, but at the same time, it's not.
I can confidently say they were not expecting
They were
this.
not.
they were not
That's not something
good
you
old
take your youth
Southern
group.
males.
No. Well,
Oh
guys, thank you again for joining me here on another episode of
Yes.
Youth Group
Of course.
It was
Chronicles. You
fun.
guys are the best. If you're listening to this and you have some stories that you want to send in, ygchronicles@gmail.com. Check out TikTok where I'm posting these videos, and then we have an Instagram page, Youth Group Chronicles. Thanks again, everybody, and see you next week.